Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are tackling one of the most, complex and sensitive geopolitical issues on the planet, the whole situation between China and Taiwan. And look, this isn't just some far-off political drama. A conflict there, it could send shockwaves across the globe. And I mean it would hit everything from the phone in your hand to the car in your driveway. So we're going to break down exactly how.
So let's get right into it. How on earth did this one island, and it's not even that big, right, become such a massive global flashpoint? I mean, we're talking about a place that could genuinely spark a major international crisis. Well, the answer? It's a messy mix of history, modern politics, and, believe it or not, a tiny little resource that the entire world absolutely relies on.
At the very heart of this thing, you've got two completely different ways of looking at the world. It really boils down to this. China says, hey, that's a breakaway province and it belongs to us. But Taiwan says, no way, we're a self-governing democracy. They've got their own government, their own military, the whole shebang. And that fundamental disagreement, that's what's driving this entire crisis.
All right, Section 1, a strait of tension. To get why this is all coming to a head right now, we've got to look at what's actually happening on the ground, or I guess in the air and on the water in the Taiwan Strait.
So what's been happening lately? It is not just business as usual. The intensity has been seriously dialed up. We're talking about a huge increase in military activity, these so-called gray zone tactics. The whole point is to intimidate and just wear down Taiwan's defenses, all without ever firing a shot. But here's the scary part. With this much constant pressure, the risk of some kind of accident or miscalculation, one that could spiral into a real fight, well, that risk gets higher every day.
Yeah, China's strategy here is pretty clear: relentless pressure. They're running these massive drills that look a whole lot like a practice invasion. They're sending warships to sail right around the island. And here's the kicker. They're flying military jets into Taiwan's air defense zone almost every single day. Now, this zone, the ADIZ, it's kind of like a buffer. It's airspace where Taiwan asks other planes to say, hey, here's who I am. So when China sends its jets in, it's a deliberate poke. They're testing how fast Taiwan can react, trying to exhaust their pilots and planes, and basically just making their military presence feel normal, right on Taiwan's doorstep.
Okay, so Section 2, the world's tech lifeline. You might be thinking, all right, this is interesting, but why should I, living thousands of miles away, really care? Well, the answer connects all of us, and it comes down to something so small you can't even see it, but it's absolutely essential to our modern lives.
We're talking about advanced semiconductors. Microchips. These are basically the microscopic brains that make almost all our electronics work. Seriously, just think about it for a second. They're in your phone, your computer, your car. They're in the massive servers that run the entire internet. They are, and this is no exaggeration, the foundation of our entire 21st century economy.
And this is where Taiwan's role becomes just massive. Get this, that one island produces more than half, over 50%, of the entire world's most advanced chips. In fact, one single company, you've probably heard of it, TSMC, is the kingpin. It's so important that people call it Taiwan's silicon shield. It's this incredible concentration of a vital resource that, frankly, makes Taiwan indispensable to pretty much everyone.
So let's connect the dots. A war in the Taiwan Strait. It wouldn't just be some regional problem. It would be an instant, catastrophic blow to the global supply chain. The assembly lines for all of this stuff, smartphones, computers, cars, you name it, they would just grind to a halt. The economic fallout would be staggering. We're talking about a shock to the system that can make other recent global crises look small by comparison. Okay, on to our third section, an unfinished history. To really figure out how we got here, we have to peel back the layers of history. A history that, you could argue, is still being written. The tensions we're watching today, they're basically a direct result of a civil war that never officially ended.
Yeah, to get the full picture, you really have to go all the way back to 1949. That's the key date. It's when the Chinese Civil War wrapped up on the mainland, but the way it ended set the stage for the exact standoff we have today.
So let's walk through this timeline. It all starts in 1949, right? The losing side in the Civil War, the nationalists, retreat to Taiwan. Then you fast forward to the 70s, and there are these huge diplomatic changes. The UN and the US both officially recognize the government in Beijing. But then, and this is super important, in the 1990s, Taiwan transforms into a real, vibrant democracy. This helps forge a totally separate identity for the island. And all of these moments, step by step, have led us right to the pressure cooker situation we're in now.
And this gets us to China's official stance. For Beijing, this one China idea is everything. It's not up for debate. From their point of view, like we said, the Civil War isn't over. They see Taiwan as part of their country, and bringing it back into the fold is just a matter of time, an internal matter. And they've made it very clear they're willing to do it by force if they think they have to.
All right, Section 4, the key players. Now, this is way more complicated than just China versus Taiwan. There are a bunch of other major players on the world stage, and every single one of them has a huge stake in how this plays out. So this chart breaks it down pretty well. First, you've got China, pushing for reunification. Then there's Taiwan, which is basically a self-governing democracy fighting to protect its way of life. Then you have the US, which has this complicated policy. It doesn't officially recognize Taiwan, but a US law says it has to help Taiwan defend itself. And don't forget the neighbors. Japan and South Korea are watching all of this very, very nervously, because any conflict right there would be a massive threat to their own security and their economies.
Okay, so our final section, what happens next? The stakes are incredibly high. All the major players are kind of locked into their positions. So where do we go from here? What could the future actually look like?
Well, you can kind of game this out into three main possibilities. First, things just stay the same, a really tense status quo with China constantly applying pressure. Second, maybe there's a big diplomatic push. World leaders try to step in and cool things down. And then there's the third path, the one nobody wants to think about. Things escalate. A miscalculation, an accident, a deliberate move, and suddenly you're in a massive regional crisis with global consequences.
And that really is the ultimate question hanging over all of this, isn't it? As the military pressure keeps building, can diplomacy actually prevent a global economic meltdown? The entire world is watching this fragile peace, wondering if it will hold or if the most important supply chain on the planet is about to collide with the crisis that would change everything.